Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Spiritual Journalist. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. We're talking all about the numerology of 2022. And if you're someone like me who is interested in numerology but doesn't quite fully understand it, well, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about the basics of numerology, how to figure out your life path number, as well as some other profiles in numerology that I'm excited to explore today. We have Numerologist Felicia Bender with us to break it all down and to dive into the numbers of 2022, what this year will bring. So let's get started. I've always been a deeply curious person, talking with anyone who would listen and soaking in as much information as possible. So it's no surprise my love for storytelling led me to a career in journalism. But after nearly a decade working in newsrooms across the West Coast, I realized I wanted to start asking questions you probably wouldn't see on your local news. So I left my job as a morning TV reporter and started The Spiritual Journalist. This isn't just a YouTube channel, podcast, website, or social media page. This is a live conversation where you get to ask questions too, because I'm not the expert. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. My goal is to connect you with people who have profound experiences and inspirational stories to share. And we'll definitely mix a little astrology in too. So if you're like me, you have this insatiable curiosity and you love deep conversations too, well, this is the place for you. Together each week, we'll explore everything from crystals and tarot to mental health and the environment. There are no wrong questions here. My ultimate goal is for you to come away from each episode with a new perspective and an expanded consciousness. This is a channel for the collective. This is a community for the curious. This is The Spiritual Journalist. Hello!
Hey, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! Happy 2022. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, I'm excited to dish all about numbers and the stars and planets with you. So,
I
yes.
cannot wait. You know, you're actually one of the first people who introduced me to numerology. I'm like a total fangirl of the Astro Twins. They're my favorite astrologers. And I listened to your podcast with them maybe a year and a half ago. And I kind of was like, what's my life path number? And started to dabble a little bit. But I know there's so much to learn, and I'm really excited to get into it today.
Okay, we get to go down the rabbit hole together. So,
Yes, but I love to start all of my interviews with a look at our guest's birth chart because astrology is my wheelhouse. And I know you're familiar with your birth chart, but I think it's a fun way to introduce people to you and your personality a little bit. So I'm sure you're familiar, and if there's anything that comes up for you, feel free to hop in and, let me know, oh yeah, this is why I'm this way or whatever. But I knew you would have some Capricorn in your chart or Earth energy, because on your website and in your branding, you call yourself the practical numerologist, right?
exactly.
So your Capricorn rising is perfect for that. You show up very practically, make things easy to understand, but also your business is like very professional for being in like the spiritual realm. When you go to your website, when you go to your page, it's very polished, very professional, very Capricorn. And
Yes,
then
very.
But it's funny too because you have a stellium in Virgo as well, and I'm a Virgo, so I love to see that Virgo energy in your chart. But your Mars is in Virgo, your Pluto's in Virgo, your Uranus is in Virgo, and so you probably take action from that place of practicality or analysis as well. A lot of your motivation probably comes from analyzing other people as a numerologist. That's very Virgo energy. But your sun is at the very tail end of Cancer, and you also have a stellium in Cancer. So I'm curious, do you have kids or are you a mom? Because I feel like there's a lot of Cancer energy in your chart.
Yes, a lot of it's really interesting because Cancer Capricorn, I find, because I'm also Cancer North Node, Capricorn South
Oh.
Node, to add to the confusion. So, in the event, but yes, I am a mom. I have two daughters, and my oldest daughter is a Virgo, by the way. So,
Oh, love that.
yes, yes.
um, yeah, it's interesting because, I know some astrologers talk about if you have a stellium in one sign, sometimes it can like express as the opposite sign. So I totally see that for you with this opposition between the Cancer Capricorn energy showing up very practically, maybe a little bit more reserved in your marketing and the way you show up, but I'm sure behind closed doors or around friends or people you're comfortable with, you're quite warm and loving with all that Cancer energy, probably very nurturing. And then you also have a lot of Leo energy in your chart, so you're kind of jam-packed over here in the sixth, seventh, eighth houses. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, Leo moon. So maybe a little bit dramatic, when you're feeling either emotional or just very comfortable.
Well, I do. I have a PhD in theater. So there you go.
So perfect.
Yeah.
This is why I love astrology because it just makes
You
so much
can't make it
sense.
up, right? You
You
really
really
can't.
can't.
Yeah.
That's so
So,
cool. You have you said a PhD in theater?
yeah. So, bachelor's,
Wow.
master's, and a PhD in theater. And I've always been musically inclined as well. I play the drums. So, music, theater, creation. I'm a humanities creation person, which is really a funny cosmic joke that I do numerology because I hate math more than anything in the entire universe. So here I am doing numerology. And I say that also for people who think numerology is math because it really isn't. To me, it's actually a language, right? And a study of human behaviors and motivating factors and everything, which is very theatrical in its way. So anyway, it's just again, you put the astrology and the numerology together, and I always say with the Astro Twins, then you're out of excuses, right?
That's the thing about these kind of studies. And, it's really the ultimate practice of looking at yourself, analyzing yourself. And, a lot of people talk about it being kind of like a code for our DNA or however you look at it, whatever it is for you. It definitely reveals some shadows, some strong suits. I think any sort of personality test or astrology or numerology you look into. Okay, so the last thing I do want to touch on, because you talked about creation and theater and kind of your business coming from this place of creation. Well, your midheaven is in Scorpio, and your midheaven, for those who don't know, is kind of your highest potential in your career. So creating, also going deep with people, doing that deep inner work is probably what has gotten you so much success in your career. And then also, your Jupiter being in your third house as well is very like speaking, talking, writing is going to bring you a lot of success in your career, which it already has.
And
Love it.
and again, it's kind of those wonderful things that when you can begin to identify those, you can own it, right? Take ownership of it, which is what I love about these arts and sciences that we are the astrology and the numerology, the art and the science of both of them.
Yeah, it's really a blending of the two. And the last thing I want to ask you about your chart is I think you're about to go through your second Saturn return in
Yes,
the
I
next maybe
am.
year or so. Have you felt it yet? Have you started to feel it?
Don't even get me going. Yes, yes, very, 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 very distinctly. Yes.
Yeah, I am going through mine as well. So yours is at 17 degrees. I think mine is at like 24 or something. So both of us will probably feel it a little bit more in 2022.
Yes.
And how is that? I mean, has it been jarring for you, or because you're so into this, has it been easier to navigate?
Well, I feel as though that's a great question because I feel like even though we know the tools, the astrology, the numerology, everything, we still have to experience our lives, right? So the beauty of it is that we can make more sense out of it potentially. It doesn't mean that that it's not hard when it's hard or whatever that is. So What I love about it is that I know that this has been coming up, so I'm ready for truly letting everything go and to reinvent. So it is what I find the tool helps me is to be open and ready for these things and to welcome it rather than resist it, because that's where the real suffering comes in, right? When we're like, no, I'm not gonna do something different. So I'm actually really, really ready for it, and yet it's been incrementally unfolding for me for a few years now, very, very directly. So does that answer the question?
Yes, I love that. I love that perspective. And I feel the same way. Like I probably last year kind of started to realize mine was coming, it started happening, and just totally leaned into it, tried to work with it, like you said, rather than resist it. But yours being in your first house too, probably looks like you said, kind of a reinvention of self or a renewal of self, activating, Saturn in your first house. And also funny that Saturn is in your first house because that's a very Capricorn energy. Well, maybe funny is not the right word for it. Seriously.
I know. I'm joking. You'll get my funny sense of humor as we go along. Well, and spoken, and you're a 4 life path with a lot of 8, so you have a lot of that very hard driving energy yourself, and with the Virgo. So you connect with that, I would think, very, very directly, or at least understand it, if you know what I mean.
I am drawn to Capricorn energy. My partner is a Capricorn. All of the girlfriends I've made, especially through work, have been Capricorns, and I don't even realize it when it's happening. That's why I love astrology too, because you start to realize the kind of people that you draw in, what purpose they bring into your life. Thanks for letting me look at your chart. I always get so curious too when I'm going to interview someone. I'm like, what's their sign? I need to know.
how am I gonna communicate best, right? It's
totally.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that way about numerology? Do you kind of look at people and guess their numbers?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Often I'm getting pretty darn good at it, at least knowing, if not the life path number, I can tell what, what's in their chart overarchingly. So, and I'm sure you're similar with astrology, you can see. And don't you love having a community of people where you can have that shorthand, say, oh, well, she's an Aquarius 11 life path. So, and everyone's like, oh, okay. So there's this way of talking about things that, I don't know. I really love that shorthand that we can have together.
Absolutely. And I think, I've made so many friends in the online space. I've been really intentional the last year about trying to build that community of people, specifically women who are interested in astrology and in the same things as me. And having the shorthand is so nice because, I feel like I can be like, okay, like today, like the moon is conjunct Saturn. How are you feeling with other people who are into astrology? And you almost dive into deep conversations without having that threshold you have to cross first,
Yeah, you can just get immediately into something that has a richer and more in-depth experience. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I do too. So for those of us who have not dedicated our lives to studying numerology, let's talk about the basics. I really want this to be easy for people to understand, especially if they've been interested in it. But like astrology, I know numerology can be kind of intimidating the first time you get that report with your life path number and all the different numbers that make up you. I want to talk about the basics. What is the basis of numerology? When did this study sort of come about?
Well, like most ologies, there are different forms. So with astrology, there's Vedic astrology, there's Chinese astrology, there's other forms of astrology. So you have to kind of identify where you are on that spectrum. For me, I practice Pythagorean numerology. It comes from Pythagoras. I don't know were you paying attention in math class, the Pythagorean theorem of geometry? Okay.
I love the Pythagorean theorem.
Really? Of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
The only
I
theorem I
don't.
remember.
Yeah, I was not paying attention at all. I was, I was in band and in theater. So anyway, I was not paying attention in math class, but if you were, you'll at least recognize it's the same guy. He was a Greek in the 500s, like 530 BC. He was a Greek philosopher, a spiritualist. He would do astronomy, music, very kind of quirky guy. He would have been kind of interesting to have dinner with, right? So
totally.
he was very totally. And yet Pythagorean numerology comes from him, and he actually posits this idea about numbers that is called numerology. So it is an art and science of numbers that posits the idea that numbers carry with them not only a quantitative value, like 1 apple, 2 apples, and so on. It carries with it a vibration and a frequency that carries with it data. It carries information. It has influence, right? It's almost like code. And we can willingly suspend our disbelief in our technical age, right? To think about, computers are, ones and zeros, all the data. What is the cloud anyway, right? It's all up there. All of everything is that. How does that happen, right? How do we do that? So numerology is kind of this matrix of information that comes in whenever numbers show up. So what I use it for, you can use it for all kinds of things. What I prefer to use it for is to work with people and to help people to get more clarity around why they're here and what their challenges might be, what their strengths, the weak links. We can look using your name. So in astrology, you're using your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth. For numerology, you don't need any of that. What you do need, except for your date of birth. So what you need for a numerology profile is your full name as it appears on your birth certificate. In numerology, we do not believe that's a mistake. That is your foundational energy that you check in to work with, to work from. And we'll look at your current name as well to see what that overlay might be for it. And then we look at your date of birth. Then we can do calculations that give you a basic trajectory of cycles of time you'll go through, what you're learning, what you're growing through with that, what the challenges, what the opportunities are. And then your core profile, just like in astrology, has your life path number, your expression, it's kind of like your rising sign, has your soul urge, your birthday has a different, and other numbers that come into play where we can really get a depth and breadth of information about what you're doing and how to do it in the best possible way. So
I love that. So I have to ask, you study this. How did you get into numerology? We talked about how you were into theater, you were in band. When did numerology sort of enter your awareness? And when was that moment that you were like, okay, I need to dive deeper into this. This really resonates with me.
Well, it's really interesting because there's, of course, the long story, and then there's the short story. So I think the short story or the medium-sized story is this. And the reason I'm saying this is because I find that a lot of times people come to spiritual information or spiritually based tools out of a difficult time in life.
100%.
When they're right, a health issue, something that happens that really makes you dive deep and get pretty real and ask those bigger questions and start seeking those other answers. For me, it was when I was in my early 30s, and my mother passed away, and she was young. She was 59. And we had, and it was we had been very close growing up, and she kind of deteriorated with some alcoholism, some other things. So it was very difficult for me and tumultuous being the Cancer with the mother figure, right? And all of that. So when she passed away, it kind of really broke me open. And I started really diving deep into, I got certified as a pranic healing energy working practitioner through that modality. I started reading and experiencing everything I could about all of this stuff, about intuition, about healing, about energy, all of it. I was an open forum for this, and it really shifted my life dramatically. And yet I have to tell you, I always felt highly intuitive in everything else, but I wasn't ever like the super psychic that could just sit down and give you a reading, right? And I'm always kind of skeptical and pragmatic, right? I am the practical numerologist after all. And it wasn't until my youngest daughter was in college and she was, seeking her major and all of this stuff. And I was in a bookstore and a book kind of literally flew out of the shelf at me. And it was not a book it was a book on careers and intuitive stuff around careers. And I picked it up and I opened it up and it had numerology in it. It had the life path. And but I would never have opened it up if it was a numerology book, if it were a numerology book. Never, ever, ever. And so I did, and I just happened on it and I looked at it and it was that moment. I'm sure those out there have experienced something where you just are like, oh my, this is it. Right? This is my thing. It's like, this makes so much sense. I did myself, I did my kids, I did my ex, I did all my family. And I'm like, and it was something like, this is right here. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can pull it off the shelf. I don't have to ohm in a corner or in a cave forever. I'm saying that, nothing wrong with that, but it's a very practical, pragmatic, scientific, interpretive art. And that was perfect for me. I love the artistry of the interpretation, and yet I love the structure, the Capricorn in me, of the science of it.
I think it's so interesting that you said, you were kind of going through the spiritual awakening, but you weren't really feeling like psychic abilities. But just looking at your chart, your 8th house is ruled by Virgo and has all of this Virgo energy. And so I love that you found a very practical, analytical, earthy way of connecting to a higher power or observing energy exchange as the 8th house rules. I think that's so fitting for your chart. And so I'm curious, you're going through this, you have this aha moment like, oh, numerology just makes sense to me. I just get this. How do you view numbers? You talked about Pythagoras and how numbers carry their own data, their own energy. Are you someone who's big into angel numbers? Do you feel that you are communicated with through numbers?
Absolutely. What's really fascinating is to go back just a second about the intuition or the psychic nature of things, is that I actually have that capability, but it works through the numbers for me. And that is even better for me because I can work with people and I channel whatever I'm channeling as I'm doing the reading. And oftentimes words come to me, phrases, references, whatever that make no sense to me whatsoever, but that I've learned that it's, I need to say it in 100% of the time. A person will say, oh my God, that's, my mother used to say that to me, or whatever, so it has a resonance that I do not have to understand, and I don't have to take ownership of that, right? I'm just that conduit there. And yet for numbers, as I continue working with them, I absolutely see repeating numbers. I see repeating numbers at different times in my life. I don't see them all the time, but when I'm working on something, or if I will see my birthday almost every day on the clock. And for me, that really indicates, as I've come to see it, that I'm doing what I was born to do. When I see my birthday. So for people, again, you can start looking at the numbers and seeing there are kind of standard ways of looking at what the messaging is, and then you can individualize it as to how it really truly speaks to you.
That's exactly how I feel about astrology too. Like, I'm not this psychic person who can just channel randomly, but I feel like when I'm looking at someone's birth chart, or even just, I do a daily live stream of the transits, I totally feel like that is my way of connecting, and very
Yeah.
Virgo, very practical, as we were just talking about. So let's talk about 2022. Speaking of angel numbers, a lot of people have been saying, it's a 222 on the calendar. It's going to bring good fortune. People are really excited about it. But from a basic numerology standpoint, what do you see for 2022?
Well, I see for 2022, I just see that we are in a significant, whatever you want to call it, ascension cycle. I mean, there's a lot of dramatic things happening in the astrology, as you can attest to, right? And the numerology really backs that up in many ways. And so in numerology, we look at different cycles of time. If we look at the year 2022, that in numerology is called the universal year. So that is the energy that we all experience globally, universally. So it's what we're all going to be swimming in, right? Or experiencing. And I like to look at this more like what's going on politically. What is happening, internationally? What are the key priorities, the key themes, the key issues, the key happenings and experiences that are going on that are happening during a certain period of time? For 2022, it's an easy math problem. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2, so that's 2, 4, 6. It is a 6 universal year. The 6 in numerology is the number of nurturing. It's home, family, responsibility with the capital R. It has a lot of different tributaries that go with it, the 6. It's again, home, family, duty, service, all of those very kind of self-sacrificing, caretaking energies, and responsibility for the whole, right? For the family. And it's also very visionary. It's very idealistic and visionary. I feel that it's a year globally that is going to be more about kind of this radical revisioning that's going on. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so I think a lot of very significant inventions, entrepreneurship, other avenues of solving problems, especially with food, a lot of issues around clean food, around other elements with food and water. That's a very 6 thing with nourishment, right? With those sorts of thematics that come in with that. I think it's also going to be about the global community, how we can come together that way. The caveats, of course, there's always going to be kind of the oppositional pole. One of the issues with the 6 is about judgment and about kind of strident, controlling perfectionism. So on that end, I feel like we're still going to be working with everyone saying, I'm right and you're wrong. And this is the way it should, right? This is the way it should be done. There's no other option here. And I'm going to tell you what to do because it's for your own good, right? It's kind of that scolding parent sort of finger wagging energy that comes with that. And then on top of that, just like you're saying, it's 2022. And the 0 in numerology is when it shows up, it is quite an intensifier. So it's really kind of, right? It's really intensifying the energy of all those 2s. And what does that bring to the table? It's very simpatico with the 6. The 2 is the lover, not the fighter. The 2 is the number of emotional intuitiveness. It is about relationships. It's all about that patient progress. It's about diplomacy, right? Mediation, peacekeeping, conflict avoidant. So it's more about the group. It's more about win-win. It's more feminine, supportive energy. So you're going to kind of fold that in to the 6, which is also very nurturing and yet has its, and both can have their rougher edges, right? And yet overall, it's going to be, I think, about focusing again on global community and how we are going to work this out for everyone and not have a winner come out on top and a loser come out on the bottom, right? It's going to be more about how do we navigate and mediate a win-win for everyone.
I hope so. I really do. I think everybody I've been hearing talk about 2022, whether it's psychics or tarot card readers or astrologers, there's really this sense of hope, but also understanding that we have some stuff we got to work through, specifically from, the past 2 years. There are still some things we need to work out. It's not like the page just flipped on the calendar and all of a sudden we have a clean slate. We have a lot of things to work through. So everything you just said seems really in line with that and gives me some hope that we can get there, we can be more innovative. I'm curious too, I know that there's kind of an intersection between astrology and numerology. Are there certain planets that rule certain numbers? Will this year be ruled by any planets in particular?
Mostly I find that I look at them more as kind of two running a parallel course, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's mostly about the numbers are about the numbers, the numerology of what's going on, and the astrology is planets and stars and those sorts of things. Numerology to me is more, what's the word I want to use? Is less fluid than the astrology, because astrology is changing all the time. What we're doing is with the numerology is it's more systematic. It's more of a system because you've got the universal year 6. Next year will be 7. You have different flavors and manners that it can come about, but you don't have the other influences, the eclipses, the other things that are coming into play that are adding some different elements to it. So I find that the numerology is a little more stable in that way in terms of thinking about it, and then the astrology it's always doing the same thing and working together. It's just I find the astrology is more fluid, and if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Total sense, because like you said, I think a lot of people are intimidated by astrology because to fully understand how any day is going to affect you in astrology, you really have to understand your own chart and you have to understand the energies of the planets on that day. It's really not as simple as a basic horoscope as much as people would love it to be, Whereas I think numerology is a great, almost like, I don't want to say it like negatively, but kind of like a gateway drug into spirituality, because if you're somebody who is practical and has a harder time reaching for that connection, numbers are, like you said, a really practical, concrete way of looking at things. So we have this 6 year ahead of us. We talked about what energy that's going to bring. But how do we figure out individually, speaking of how these things affect us, how do we figure out how we will be affected as individuals through 2022?
Well, it's interesting because there's a couple layers here, as there always are, right? And so you can do as deep a dive as you want, but we're attempting to keep it as simple as possible. So again, for those of you who are like, I don't even know what numerology is, how does this even work? So that 6th universal year is like that umbrella energy that we're all globally experiencing. And then there's another cycle called the personal year cycle that is much more of a direct influence on you as an individual. So that is taken by adding together your month of birth, your day of birth, and then the current year. So your year of birth goes to the sidelines for just a moment. And so for you are September 18th. And in this configuration, September is the 9th month. So that's a 9. Then the 18th is, we're always just doing simple addition here. So 1 plus 8 equals 9. So 9 and then 9. And we just talked about 2022 is a 6, right? So then we're going to simply add those 3 numbers together. 9 plus 9 equals 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that is a 24. So you're like, okay, now what? In numerology, we're always reducing to a 1-digit number. There are exceptions, but the general rule is reducing to a 1-digit number. So 2 plus 4 equals 6. So you are actually in a 6th personal year within a 6th universal year. So you're going to get a pretty direct conduit to this energy of that nurturing and all that. And that can show up for you in personal year. It's a relationship evaluation year. So the 6, So the 6 is all about, as a personal year, when it shows up as a cycle, all about relationship evaluation. And as corny as it may sound, it's from the inside out. It's who am I? What is my relationship with me right now in my life at this moment, right? Because 9 years ago in your 6th year, you're going to be a different person in maturity and everything else than you are now. So it's like, who am I now? What do I want? What do I need? And a spotlight is on relationship with you and then with everyone in your circle. I always say that this is the should I stay or should I go year, or should it stay or should it go? And it's about asking that overall question: how do I love? What is my love language? What is my love style? And how's that working for me? And how do I want to be loved? Right? And so it's often plays out as really evaluating who's in your circle, who you relate with, who's in your relationship circle. And it can be a time where people, you up the ante and up commitment and up all of that, or you let something go. In numerology, the 6 is also called the marriage and divorce energy. So it's like, if you're in a relationship, usually you up the commitment and you really commit to date night, and maybe you up the engagement, you move in, you get married, you whatever that is. Or if you're in a relationship and it's not working, you go to therapy, you do whatever, and you say goodbye to it. It's also a very creative time for you when the 6, but it's also going to bring some higher levels of responsibility, however you define that, and home and family based stuff. And that doesn't have to be bad in any way, shape, or form. It just could be, you're being called upon to do some more things, and you're asked to modulate that, not overgive and not be irresponsible. So there are a lot of different conduits that come with that. But it's often a very, in terms of numerology, the 6 year and the 2 year are often a year where you really can find the one. You really, it's relationship centered in that way. Make sense?
Okay, I love this. This is great. It's already on my vision board. Like, it's great. And I think it's funny too, because Venus is retrograde right now, as I'm sure you're aware. So yes. For anybody watching who's also a 6, or just, the energy of the 6 in general for the year, and the 2 and love and all those things, if it doesn't feel like it right this second, just like wait until February, because Venus
just breathe. It's a whole year. Yeah.
Don't make the decision right now. Like, just don't.
Exactly. You've got a whole 12 months to move through this energy and to move through the process.
Okay, so that's my personal year, and that is calculated by my month of birth, my day of birth, and the current year. But in numerology, the thing that I have seen as kind of like your sun sign of numerology, kind of like the basic, if you're just going to look at one number, is that your life path number?
Correct. That is called your life path number. And the way, if you're out there listening and you can, pen and paper, you got your calculator on your phone, whatever, don't do it if you're driving. Okay, please just wait till later.
Reminder.
Or if
press pause.
Math in your head. Yeah, if you can do math in your head, more power to you. But I always say also, it's kind of like carpentry, measure twice, cut once, right? Same with numerology, because if you're off one number, you're really off, because they're very, very different. So the way that, can we use your
Yes,
You're not
please.
okay. Here's your birthday. So the way that you calculate this, there are of course different schools of thought about how to calculate numbers. Okay, and so I'll give you the way that I have been taught is the more kind of proper way to do it. But there are other ways, and I'll kind of indicate those afterwards. But with that said, we're going to take your full date of birth. So it's September 18th, 1993. We're going to categorize those into three categories, right? We're going to do the month, the day, the year. So September, easy enough. It's the 9th month, so that is a 9. So the 18th, we did that before, 1 plus 8, that equals 9. So you have 9 and 9. Now we've got the hard part, okay? The hard math, people. 1993, 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 9 is 19, plus 3, 20, 21, 22. Okay. I'm getting a little bit, I'm getting a little bit more advanced, but not really. 22 is a master number. Okay. 11, 22, 33, those sort of repeating numbers like that are considered master numbers. In this sequence, we do not reduce that. Otherwise, we would reduce it to a 4. But because it's a master number, I've been taught that you leave it as the master number.
So
it's
I'm
not,
a master number?
Well, you have a master number as your
Life
year
path.
of birth. As your
Oh,
your year of birth. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So now we're going to add those three together. And I'm going to go back to your response there because that's so cute. It's so funny. Because everyone's like, I want to be a master number. I'm like, hold the boat. You might want to think twice about that. Ask
really?
people with
Okay,
master
okay.
numbers. Yeah. It's more spiritual, opportunities and more intense challenges. So it's usually not particularly a little jaunt along in the park there. So, but with that, to go back to the math here, so we do 9 plus 9 plus 22. So I'm going to start with a higher number, so 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay. 40 is 4 plus 0. That equals 4. Yet, again, remember what we talked about with the universal year when that 0 showed up with the 2022 as an intensifier. The same with you. So you're like Uber 4. You're like Super 4, right?
Okay.
You got your Super 4 cape on. But that's how you would get your life path numbers. So if you're out there, again, add twice, add twice or 3 times. Make sure you've got the right number. Another way of adding is by adding what I just call the long way. Other numerologists will add by adding it all together as one long math problem instead of segmenting it out. So that would be September is 9 plus 1 plus 8 plus 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 3. So that would be another way to add that together. And you will.
But you'll get to the same number regardless,
You'll get to the
right?
same number regardless. It's just that as you go down, again, that rabbit hole and get more interested in the nuances and the more specificity that you can get, the two numbers before you reduce any number do have significance. They do play into how it presents for you. But once again, just knowing.
So I wouldn't have known that I'm like a 22 year if I did it that way.
Correct. Well, you're not a 22 year. You're a 22. Your year of birth is a 22. Yeah.
Got it.
So 1993. I know it gets confusing, but 1993.
But I appreciate this.
Yeah. So it is, and all of the numbers have significance and just like in astrology, right? And wherever the house is, wherever everything shows up, so you can really do deep dives into this stuff. But to start out is always the best to start with the basics. And, as a life path 4, it's like knowing you're a Virgo. It's interesting because it is very Virgoian. I would think it's even more Capricornian in the 4.
Really?
Yes, it's more It's got some similarities to both, because the 4 in numerology, and let's remember this, the 4 is the 4 for you as the life path, it's what you've checked in to do and learn. So it's kind of like I visualize we're over there on the other side, and we're with the, the catalog for the school of life on planet Earth. And you like go, all right, I'll do that coursework. I don't know anything about that. Ooh, I took that course and I failed it before. Let me come back and do it, right? Either way, one way or the other. And yet, the 4 as a life path is a path of, I call the 4, you are the artisan, the systems builder, you're the teacher, right? This number is all about hard work, effort. It is seeking stability, seeking security. And so oftentimes you don't have that growing up, or it's a little bit out of reach. And I also find that the 4, I think I put a little more emphasis on this than many numerologists, but there's a lot of family stuff that is here. Everyone, every human being has family issues, right? And yet the 4, it is a significant priority to create the family of choice that you want and need to make you feel secure, stable, anchored, and just loved and supported in that way. And that's a very significant pathway for you. But overall, the 4 is the teacher, tried, true. Even if you look at the number 4 and you turn it over, it looks either like a chair or like a box, right? Mm-hmm. So it is, in numerology, it is foundations energy. To get stuff done, just get a 4, because they're tenacious. It's about endurance. It is for the long haul, right? And in numerology, it's the number of limitation. So it's lit, because the 4 is like, it's black or it's white, it's this or it's that, it's right or it's wrong.
So Capricorn energy.
Very much, because it's all about accomplishment, all about results, all about something tangible, all about that. And it's really the slow, steady, it's about learning about the power of process, the power of systems, the power of that sort of thing. It can be kind of grueling, okay? And with your other numbers, it always is interesting to see what other, factors that you have in there. But with you, the 4 overall is that teacher, the system, the knowledge purveyor, like the one who can just soak it all up, a lifelong learner. And then there's always the opposing forces, and we'll ask your significant other about this. Well, I don't want to argue. I will not argue, but let me tell you why I'm right. Okay.
Is that me? That's me.
That's you.
That is me. Like, actually, I don't want to do this, but I just want to get the last word in and tell you how I'm seeing the situation. But let's just close it there.
Yeah, exactly. So what I love about numerology and all of these is that it gives you the optimal, what it's all about, what you're really here to work with, and what your powerful aspects of that are. And then there's going to be the opposing forces all the time during our life that we get to deal with, either the overactive or the underactive. So there are always going to be those caveats, right? Those challenges or tendencies that we have. And with the 4, it's stubbornness, it's inflexibility, because the 4 is one of those people, since you're always seeking stability, security, certainty, it's hard to sometimes see outside the box. Right? Mm-hmm. And I always say the pathway for the 4 is to learn that you are inside the box and want to get out of it, right? And so kind of crawl out of it, shut that door, and go stand on top of the box. Use it for your foundation, right? Use it for your anchor, but stand on top of it so that you can get more of a bird's eye view of what else is out there, because one of the things that the 4 is best at is micromanaging and being really limiting in the way that they approach things, right? And so it's a matter of bringing other people in who can push you in to see kind of above the waterline. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that was an option, right? So let's bring that into play. Yeah, but hardworking,
So spot
hardworking.
on.
Yeah.
I am hardworking. That is for sure. I think if you ask anybody, they would say that. But everything you said about home and family and challenges, and like literally my mission in life is to be a good mother and create my own family. And I'm not a mother yet, but you know, I really believe that all of the hardships I have gone through already in my life, just from my family, have been those lessons I needed to fully step into that version of myself and to know what I want to create for my own family when that time comes. So I feel like that's just so reassuring, and I'm so excited to like dive more into being a 4. Like, yeah, and I love the visualization of standing on top of the box too. I really, you know, astrology has helped me a lot with that as well, being so Virgo, and I'm also a Virgo rising, so I've always really resonated with Virgo, but then kind of learning my other placements, learning about my North Node in Sagittarius. Like when you said stand on top of the box, I'm like, that's me getting out of the box, right? Like I have to get out and explore and be free and have fun, which doesn't come easily for me. But that was a big moment for me in deepening my understanding of astrology as well, of like, wow, there were all these other parts of me and all this potential. So to hear you talk about those parallels with numerology is just so reassuring.
It is really powerful, I find, to look at both and to see how they speak to each other, right? They're always kind of saying the same thing, pointing you in the same direction, you know, giving you the same pathway, just with some different nuances of information. Because with you, your expression, it's kind of like your rising sign is an 8. And the 8 is the powerhouse number. It's about money, power, control, authority, financial well-being, all of those things. It is the higher octave, I say, of the 4. They're very congruent and simpatico. They're very in alignment, but it's pretty hard hitting, I got to say, you know, just so you know. In that way. And then you have this other aspect though. So you have your soul urge. This is taken from the vowels in your name. That's a 2. The 2 is that soft and more, the ambition for the 2 is exactly what you just said. I want to be a mother. I want to have a family. I want to be the point person and the ambition resides in relationship connection, right? More so than in outward accomplishment, right? And so this is an interesting kind of little duality that you've got going on. You want to accomplish in the world, and yet you also, and that's why we live a long time, right? Usually, so that you can do it all. I think I remember Oprah Winfrey one time was asked, do you believe you can have it all? And I remember her saying, yes, I do, just not all at once. So someone like you really needs to take that in, because there will be times if you really, you know, because when you have children and everything, you can't buy that time back, right? So you have to really balance and harmonize that. And then your birthday is that 9, right? The 18th is a 9. That is the humanitarian. So the fact that you've been brought into, you know, your spiritual functionality at this young age, which is a very young age, and now you can have these layers and these tiers of development. You can do your family, you can do your spiritual work, because the 9 is highly creative, incredibly charismatic, and here to lead, to do what you're doing because you can't not do it, and it's got to be to help others, you know, the greater good in whatever way that you see that. So your chart is a very interesting dynamic. And when we start being able to see that and give ourselves permission to do what we're doing while we're doing it, I think it's worth the price of admission, right? For knowing, you're like, whoo, I'm not failing, I can do it
Yeah.
all. I just have to do what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I'll have time for all of it as long as I know what all of it looks like for me. Yeah. Makes sense, I think.
Totally. It makes perfect sense for exactly where I am right now in life, as you talked about this being a 6 year for me, but also just, my life path number, my expression. I like how you said an 8 is a hard expression because, tying it back to astrology, which is the language that I resonate with most, it's like that 4, you talked a lot about Virgo, very earthy, grounded, ambitious qualities, but the 8 expression, that's like my Virgo rising. Like, I'm not just a Virgo. I'm going to show up and show you that I'm a Virgo and show you like how
Yes.
precise I can be and how perfect I can be, which, has bit me in the butt a few times in my life for sure.
Oh, no, couldn't have.
People are like, why are you trying so hard? Like, just
Yeah, it's like,
be a
chill
normal
it.
human.
Take a chill pill, man.
Totally. So
Yeah.
for other people watching, because I know we kind of talked about the life path number being that kind of the first, like your sun sign, that first number that might be a great introduction to numerology. Can you go through really quickly the different life path numbers, just to see if people resonate with theirs once they do their calculation?
Absolutely. And this is again, oh my gosh, just the tagline, right? So
The
if
tip
you're
of
a
the
one life
iceberg,
path,
yeah.
tip of the iceberg, that you're the innovative leader, learning about creativity, self-confidence, all the I words, learning about self, independence, individuation, initiation, your beginnings, you're that entrepreneurial energy. That's a mouthful sometimes. And so again, that's the leader, meant to be taking the lead. But remember, when I talk about every single one of these, someone's going to go, that's not me. Remember, it's the opposing forces come in. So every key word I say, think, ooh, it's hard for me to lead. My self-confident, and sometimes I feel like I'm failing and I don't fit in. All of these things are very much a part of the one, and each number has that oppositional pull. So the number 2, if you're a 2 life path, I call you kind of the intuitive diplomat. Again, the lover, not the fighter. You're about patience, developing patience, everyone's favorite thing, right? But about mediation, diplomacy, highly intuitively sensitive, the 2 takes a lot of things very personally because you very sensitive, learning how not to be taken advantage of by others. They're usually the one who's very giving to the point of overgiving until they withdraw with resentment. So that's the kind of the opposing force with the 2, but very loving and very, very focused on relationships and on group dynamics. And the 3 life path is the creative communicator, all about creative self-expression, joyful, it's joy, optimism, and basically very emotionally sensitive. These are the performers of the world. Okay, meant to be, it's the impeccable word, meant to be the power of words, whether it's acting, writing, broadcasting, anything is in the wheelhouse of the 3. The 4 is that systems builder, the teacher. We talked about that with you. So people who are a 4 can kind of got a little bit about that when we talked about you and your life path. The 5 is the sensuous freedom seeker, fun, fearlessness, adventure, all of those very dynamic, experiential energies that come with the 5, very versatile, natural salesperson, but they're the agent of change and they are the number of excess. So a lot of experiential, again, that sensual, that tactile, experiential lifetime they're meant to lead. Very adventurous, travelers, those sorts of things. So the 6 is the nurturing visionary. The 6 is, again, that even if you look at the number 6, it looks like a little pregnant belly. It's all about home, family, duty, service, self-sacrificing, very responsible, and learning how to care for yourself really as well as you care for others, even though you're always going to be the designated driver, so to speak, right? If you're a 6. The 7 is the analyst. and sometimes reluctant spiritualists. These are the people who are super brainiacs, but they're also really super psychic. But theirs is a really internal soul expansive journey. They're almost like the people on the Big Bang Theory, right? Really heady, really, and yet there's this intuitiveness. They're learning how to be these fountains of wisdom that are related to that.
My partner is a 7, and
he's a 7.
That was spot on. Yeah.
Yes.
Very heady.
Very,
yeah,
very
he's
heavy.
watching right now too. This is you. You're a 7.
This is you, honey. Yeah. And so, and they're beautiful souls, and yet they have this, they're like on a different planet, right? They're on a different wavelength. They're often really misunderstood. 4s and 7s, by the way, I find coupled very often. They really get along well.
Really?
That's just a little sidebar.
Interesting.
Yeah, 8 is the CEO, that powerhouse, that material manifester, all about financial abundance. It's about money, power, control, authority, and all that goes with that. It sounds fun, but not really. Yeah. It's very intense. It's a very intense ride. And once again, I work with a lot of 8s who are like, that's not me. Money is, I hate money, or I don't ever have any of it. You're an 8, because you're always working with money and working what it means to you, what it doesn't mean to you, all of those higher level things with that. The 9 is the charismatic and creative, altruistic humanitarian. These are people who are they're beautiful, wacky weirdos, and I mean that and they're meant because they're kind of in numerology. It's kind of a sacred number because we're working 1 through 9, right? 1 is beginnings, new starts, self, ego. The 9 is completions, letting go, surrender, impermanence. It's all about giving, right? On a universal and connecting with universal wisdom. But even if you look at some 9 life paths to get an idea, like Mother Teresa, Gandhi, and then Prince, Elvis Presley, Adele, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, these vortexes, right? They're kind of these otherworldly, cataclysmic vortexes of energy. Greta Thunberg, right? She's another 9. So very, very directed on what they want to do and give back to humanity in whatever way, shape, or form, right? So that's there. And then we have those master numbers, 11, 22, 33. The 11 is the spiritual illuminator. I always say to go back and look at the 2, because that's a foundational energy, and then the 1 and double it. Right? So you've got a lot of interesting polarity going on there. The master numbers are a whole other ball game. I've written a whole book on master numbers. That's how much you could talk about the master numbers. And the 22 is the master builder and master teacher. And the 33 is the teacher of unconditional love. And so they're high level callings. Again, more spiritual potential, more intense challenges. It's not easy. Marathon, not a sprint. So it's very experiential if you have that master number.
Wow. Okay, well, that was amazing. Just a little breakdown of each number. And at the end of this, we'll talk about where to go on your website, where to find out more, dive in, get a reading, whatever you offer to, if people are like, I need to know more. But before we get there, I just have 1 or 2 more questions for you. As you're going through the life path numbers, my brain goes to the astrology wheel, and a lot of this, of course, there are 12 houses on the wheel and 9 basic numbers in numerology, but going around the wheel, there are a lot of the same themes as you're going up in the numbers. Why do you think that is? I know a lot of people see numbers and astrology as just kind of a way to decode this reality, right? Or this lifetime we're living in. Why do you think there are such parallels? And why do you think that these numbers resonate so deeply with people?
Well, it's what's so fascinating to me is that, and even if we extend the 12 houses to the 12 numbers, if we count 1 through 9, and then the master numbers 11, 22, 33, then we also, come up with 12 there as well. And I think truly what resonates with people is this. It's this whole concept that, for instance, I can go and I can fill out a test online for a personality thing or a strengths finder or whatever. And I actually did that the other day. A friend of mine was doing something with the Enneagram or something. And this is no disrespect to anything. I love all of this stuff. I think it speaks to whomever it speaks to and whenever it speaks to us. And yet for me, I'm answering these questions and I'm thinking, it depends on what they mean by that. And it depends on where I am in any given day. One day, it's like, how confident are you from 1 to 10? It's like, today I'm a 10, and then yesterday I was a 2. And so it depends. So what I find really resonates with people is with astrology and numerology, you don't have to answer any questions. It's all there. You checked in with this pathway, and it's just like you just need to know your name and your date of birth for numerology. You just need to know the other things for your astrology. You don't have to answer any questions. It's all there. And for me, it's very much like I like to use the metaphor of Morse code. So if you walk into a room and Morse code is going off on the Morse code thing, whatever it is, whatever you would call that. You walk in, you don't know Morse code. It's just static, right? It's just whatever. It's just something. If you walk in and you know Morse code, you know the information and the data and the intel that's being relayed. And it's very much the same thing with numerology and in many ways with astrology. It is all there. It's just you have to crack the code. You have to learn the code. You have to learn and then learn the interpretive art of interpreting it for yourself. Because I just got someone said something on my YouTube channel that resonated with me. He said, I've looked at numerology a lot in the past, and all of it, is all well and good, but I'm a this life path and I just don't find it specific enough, and that it doesn't give me any actionable tools because this is just how I am. And yet for me, it's like, yes, this is how you are, but are you in alignment with the highest and best and the optimal of it? And by knowing it, you can take responsibility for that, right?
Totally. Well, and then even I was looking at the report you sent me, which I'm so excited to read the whole thing. But, you go through 2022 in this report and talk about the number of each month for me. So I feel like there can be these actionable tools if you get a reading or dive deep enough into it, get a great enough understanding of like, okay, in January, this is going to be, I'm trying to get to that part of my my reading, but like it's my 5 essence for, oh no, that's for the whole year.
Yeah.
But okay, 7 personal month for January. So knowing that it's a 7 personal month for me, it gives me specific things that I can kind of focus on for the month, right?
It's very much like a horoscope.
Yeah.
Because I actually on my website, I do a monthly forecast for you and with your personal year. And what I want to kind of tag back around to that comment that I was referring to is what I would tell that person if we were having a conversation is that, it's up to you, like anything else, to take information and make it actionable. and act upon it, right? You can take all of this pie in the sky information and it's just out there. That's why, again, I'm the practical numerologist. I don't care about any of this stuff if it doesn't help me live a better life today, right here on terra firma, right? So I can get as woo-woo as the next person, but what is it doing for me in this lifetime? We checked in with this, so how am I going to make the best of it? And it really is up to me to do it, to actually, because what I hear when someone says, I don't see any actionable tools, it's like, you want someone to do it for you? You're basically wanting to have the tool kind of come in and clean the room for you. It's like, no, this is we give you the tool. Now you get to figure out how to use it, right? You get to figure out what resonates with you, what works for you. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can have this information and there's a million different ways to put it into play and to put it into practice on a very, very concrete way, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think the same could be said for astrology, for Enneagram. I know people who are super into Enneagram, and it's like you can say, okay, I'm a Virgo, or these are my planets, and that's it. But it's up to you to say, okay, how can I lean into this energy more, or how am I not living up to my potential in this area of my life? And that's a personal decision. If you're totally happy with your life, like you said at the beginning of this, most people don't dive deep into these subjects unless they are looking for guidance or looking for answers or purpose or all of those things. So one more thing you said is you don't want to get full woo-woo, or you can get full woo-woo. I have to ask you a full woo-woo question.
Okay.
What does numerology mean to you in a spiritual sense? What has it done for you spiritually?
Other than everything, it really has, for me, it's given me such an incredible way of understanding myself, but also other people. It's so validating, and it gives me those key words, key concepts. First of all, it's a permission slip. Not only that, it's a mandate. Usually when I work with people, they're like, oh my gosh, everyone's been telling me I shouldn't be this, but that's who I am, right? And that's part of our pathway is kind of, meandering and making those detours sometimes. And so what I love about numerology is that first, in the trenches, validates who I am, why I'm here, what I'm doing. It gives me things to keep aligning with so that I know when I'm feeling off, I'm off. And I have to come back to, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a key concept for me in that way. It allows me to see other people, especially as a mother, and especially having, it allows me to truly, I had that propensity anyway to see my daughters as individuals, as people here on, traversing I'm just here to support their process in whatever way I can. But numerology really drills that in, is that we are part of people's lives, but we are not it. And and everyone has a different way. It's so freeing to go, oh, I don't have to be responsible for everybody else and force them into my way of doing, seeing, thinking, feeling, all of that. As silly as it may sound, it's a pretty monumental shift for most people, because most people really want to, to control that with other people. Numerology allows you to see that, variety is the spice of life. And the sooner that you realize that, the better off you're going to be, or the better off you're going to feel, because people don't think the way you do. They don't value the same things you do. They aren't driven by the same things you are, usually. And when they are, those are people who usually are your friends, I mean, it's like you were saying, the people who you draw in, and friendships. But it allows me just a higher level of experience on every single level in my life. And I can just see just the high, it just offers me an incredible experience of heightened everything. It's just like what you're talking about when you enter into a relationship with astrology-minded people, that you can say this thing and you can just immediately go into that sort of conversation. It allows for a lot of understanding and a lot of, in some ways, forgiveness, I think, in life as well. Yeah.
I could say the exact same thing about astrology. That's why I knew I needed to dive deeper into it, because it did unlock that sense of empathy and understanding of other people around me, and not trying in my Virgo-ness to change them or to make them live up to certain expectations, to just see them as they are. And it sounds like numerology, or I'm understanding now that numerology can give you that same experience. So
absolutely.
I'm so grateful for all I've learned in this conversation, and I feel like, this is just the beginning. I'm excited to keep learning about numerology.
Yeah, I just love it. I don't know how I'd live without it now. It's kind of funny.
I get it, totally. Okay, so we end all of our interviews with a card pull. I'm going to just pull from a basic tarot deck because we have a lot of numbers in the tarot deck, so I thought that would be good. But while I'm shuffling this up and getting ready, I'm going to pull up your website. And if you can just go ahead and tell people what you're offering, what the best way to learn from you or get in touch with you is, I would love that.
Oh, absolutely. So if you are numerology curious, this is the portal for all things numerology. I hope that's the design anyway, or the desire and design. So it's FeliciaBender.com. I've got great free resources there. We've got life path videos. They're connected with my YouTube channel. We've got a lot of things going on there so that you can watch, and we've got monthly forecasts there free as well. You can follow every month to get an outline of what's going on for you numerologically that way. In terms of your own profile, you can order those on my website. I've got courses that you could take that are online, and a couple books that you can order as well. I've got another book that's going to be launched in the next we'll see in the next 6 weeks or so, I hope. The ultimate guide to practical numerology. It's your path and purpose is going to be coming out soon, and it is really going to be a depth and breadth of numerology, hoping to be simple but in depth to learn how to read your chart. And then right after that, I'll be offering a numerology for entrepreneurs course, which I'm really excited about. That'll be an 8-week kind of really intense program, so that'll be coming up as well.
I love that. So do you suggest people get their full report from you first, or where do you think if someone is brand new that they should start?
I think starting out with, if you even go on my website and you go start here, you can start there. I think simply knowing your life path number. So if you go to life path, we have a calculator there, and it will calculate it for you. And then there are descriptions that you can scroll down to. There's written descriptions and also video. So that is a great place to start out, to just figure out what your life path number is, see how that resonates with you. And then if you really, get hooked, you can go and order a chart, see all of your numbers, and then take it from there. But just like astrology, it's best to figure out your sun sign first, right? It's kind of that basic foundational tool that you need to figure to identify with your chart, and then go deeper after that.
I love all the resources you have on your website. I'm excited to explore it even more. And the last thing I have to ask you before I pull this card, because you have it just so dialed in on your website, like you are definitely, you've got this profession down, but you said you didn't discover numerology until your 30s. So what were you doing before this career?
Oh my goodness. So I'm a 3 life path, and I am the poster child for the 3. I have had many manifestations and many careers. So I was wife and mother and did kids. I earned a doctorate during that time. Then I worked at a newspaper for a little while. I did some freelance writing. And then I got into real estate. Oh, and in between, I did the energy work. I did the energy work with clients. I got into real estate, became a broker. I did fix and flips. I did investment properties. I did design with that and did buy and sell. And then I got really hooked into the numerology. I was doing that simultaneously. And then finally was like, I just really want to make this my full-time gig. I was really I just love working with clients. I work with clients very regularly. I do groups and that sort of thing. So I just really love it. So that's what I do now. So it all somehow comes together, right?
Right. So multifaceted. I love it. Okay. Well, this is the card I pulled, the Lovers. So seems fitting with a lot of the things you were saying about the 2022, potentially the 6 as well. I will pull up the description and the little book here because I am not a tarot expert, but here's what it says. You have a beautiful soul-honoring connection with another. You successfully integrate dual forces into a united state. You face a choice of the highest moral grounds. Does that resonate with the year ahead, you think? Or maybe that's just for me?
Oh, well, it always has it's always, that ponderousness. It's like, ooh, that could apply here or here or here. So I think it's always about that processing through it and figuring out exactly where it lands, right?
Yeah, well, if anybody is looking for love in 2022, this is a good omen for you. I don't know what your life path number is, but pulling the Lovers card, I also just keep hearing the message of 2022 from whoever that like love relationships are really going to dominate the story this year. So I think it's very fitting that we pull the Lovers.
Even with Venus in retrograde, it's everyone getting their Venus internally calibrated, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that way of describing a retrograde for sure, because I am like that silver linings person. Like, it's not all bad. This is a time of reflection. This is a time to really assess your own values in love and money and relationships. So, but again, Venus is only retrograde through the end of the month. So if it's been a rough one for you, just
breathe.
Yeah, just breathe. What's it showing you? All the things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
What a pleasure.
This is such a fun conversation. I can't wait to just keep learning about numerology, and I'm so grateful you came on and shared your knowledge with us.
Thank you for asking, and this will be a great 2022 for you in your 6th personal year. And so we'll have to reconvene at the end of the year and see how it played out for you. So
I would love that. Well, I can't wait to keep connecting with you, keep learning from you. And to everyone who watched this live stream, thank you so much for joining us today. If you didn't catch the full thing, this will live on YouTube and thespiritualjournalist.com forever, and it'll also be published as a podcast in the next 24 hours. So lots of ways to connect with Felicia, as well as at her website, feliciabender.com, and we'll be back with more interviews next week. But until then, stay curious.
Thank you so much for joining our discussion today. If you enjoyed this episode of The Spiritual Journalist, you can find more on thespiritualjournalist.com, or you can listen to our conversations wherever you enjoy podcasts. And if you want to learn more about astrology, join me live every weekday morning on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for Transits Today, where we break down the energy of the day based on the movement of the planets and start our morning off in a high vibe. All of the information we share on The Spiritual Journalist is completely free to you. So if you'd like to support more content like this, the easiest way to do so is to subscribe to our YouTube page. Head over to the Spiritual Shop on our website and buy yourself a little something. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy me a coffee to fuel future live streams. Just tap the link in the description or head to buymeacoffee.com and search The Spiritual Journalist. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I can't wait for our next conversation.